Because you're young.
Mike will serenade everybody. Yes,
Because you're young.
Foogly, we are on time. Folks, welcome
Hmm.
to Talking Crit. I am Eric Tenkar, a bartender in the OSR. With me, as always, alongside me, my once a week work spouse, Bad Mike Battalato.
Hello.
And with the weight of the show on his shoulders, the one, the only, I could say balancing the show on his head,
Mm-hmm.
the one and only Jim Kitchen.
It's
Uh,
my
Yeah.
hair that holds this show up. That's what
well,
does it.
it certainly isn't mine.
Mm.
I will say that. So,
Mm.
this is your panel, peoples. This is your panel.
So
Uh,
many things to not talk about. I mean, so many
oh,
things to talk about. So many things to talk about. Where do we start? It's a banner evening. Spring is slowly coming on stronger and stronger. It's
I know
warmer.
it's light outside. I love it when it's light outside. I do the show.
I know it's
well,
crazy.
yeah, well, no, it's not light outside here in New York, but you know, we're getting back to warmer weather. We were up in the 80s last week, and now we got down to the 30s at night, and now we're swinging back to like Texas temperatures. But
Well,
yes,
it's allergy season. The trees are mating. It's just wonderful. Wonderful.
Mm.
it's when your cars turn green.
Mm. Oh, it's when my car is gooey. It's
Yeah.
got sap all over it.
Oh no,
Well, at least I think that's sap. That's tree sap, right?
I don't know where you're parking, but it could be.
I hope it's tree sap.
You're making me a little afraid there, Mike. Just saying. Yeah, there are a couple of things. Actually, the one that it's still stuck in my craw because, um, I mean, what was it? A year ago, 2 years ago, when WotC was putting out their D&D channel of like live plays.
Oh yes, we're gonna have to talk about this tonight. I know where you're going.
Yeah, 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 and it was pretty much canceled before it went forward. But now it looks like they have a new live play stream that they're teasing.
Eric, this struck me, and maybe I'm completely wrong. Is this their answer to Critical
No,
Role?
Douglas. No, of course I screwed that up totally, but he'll get it tonight. Sorry.
Is this their answer to Critical Role? Since
This
Critical
looks
Role
like
is
it's
leaving,
your answer to Critical Role. Yes.
because this is mostly Hollywood. Do you have the news release there, or should I find it? Because it names the people and who they are. And what
I
they
never
do.
even saw that. I just saw it pop up in my feed on Facebook from numerous people resharing it, and I watched the YouTube video and wondered what I was watching.
Oh boy.
But only, and that's because it was short. I mean, I understand it. It
Right.
was done like like a TV advertisement, but it didn't have to be that short because it is on YouTube. You could have gone a little bit longer, but it does look like they're going for that audience, that Critical Role audience with it, which is
Now I want to say the correct term isn't they lost Critical Role, but Critical Role has moved on, so to speak, or they're doing something.
yeah,
They're not.
Critical Role is this. They're kind of like balancing. They're supporting their own game, but they're also kind of supporting 5e. But they're splitting up the party, kind of to do both. So I don't know.
I found part of the press release. Let me find
All
the
right.
whole thing so I can read. Well, let me find the actual play. This is somebody else posted. This is a post from somebody else. I want to find the original post here. It's come roll with us, Dungeon Masters. New episodes weekly on Wednesday. This is called the Dungeon Masters Show. It feature. It's too small. Hold on. Let me find it. It's an actual play. It is an actual play. So true. It's their version of actual play. I believe I'm going to say that it is a Critical Role kind of thing. Okay, so here's the people starring, and I'm not going to know any of these people. Jasmine Bueller, who's the Dungeon Master. Mayana Barron, cast member. Christian Navarro, cast member. Neil Newbon, cast member. And Diora Wild, cast member. I have now it doesn't say here, but I have another page that they are artists and Hollywood and video game personalities.
Oh, gee.
So if you know who these people are, I guess you know, but I have never heard of nor seen any of them. But I am not that much into the Hollywood scene. And I'm going to say that probably the Hollywood credits are not immense. This isn't Al Pacino and Friends here we're talking about, and they probably worked as on shows. I don't know if they're actually starred in shows. They just worked on shows. They worked in video games, and they've worked in various industries like that, gaming industries. But I don't recognize any of them. I'm looking at them, and I don't recognize their names. But this is going to be there. What they're doing is the first campaign they're running is a Ravenloft campaign.
Okay.
Ravenloft, the Warriors Within. So they have their own. So this is very Critical Role adjacent. Let's put it that way. This is very Critical Role. It says each episode you'll experience a bold new presentation of D&D storytelling with an original score by 5-time Grammy-nominated composer Dave Arkenstone, a custom set, cinematic presentation, and elevated production design, all built from material players can actually bring home and make on their own.
Wait. Time out.
The show is built using
How
official
do players?
game.
Are they selling material that's based upon this?
Doesn't it sound like it? That they maybe
Fair.
say, hey, look at this cool thing we're using in the Ravenloft campaign. If you want to run this Ravenloft campaign at home, you might want to buy this because it's really, really kick ass. It's awesome. And so, it sounds like this is a very much an advertisement also, as well as a live play.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm jumping in.
The shark jumped already.
I believe that everybody watching this is familiar with the G.I. Joe cartoon, the Transformers cartoon, the My Little Pony cartoon, the Care Bears cartoon. The list goes on and on and on and on. They have chosen to go a live route, not an animated route.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. I mean, really and truly, I haven't even seen the pictures, but I know that everybody who has been cast or slotted into this is infinitely better looking than any of the three of us on this show.
Yeah, it looks like a mini super. It's 5 supermodels. Yes.
So
basically.
I doubt they can afford supermodels. Let's just call them attractive young people.
Yeah. More attractive than us three. That we should have kept it at that. I don't know. Yeah.
But this is simply the next step in what everybody else has been doing. But more interestingly, it's in-house, and they've taken control of it. And instead of hoping that Critical Role presents D&D in the way they would prefer, they are doing it in-house and making sure that this goes the way they want it to go.
Yeah.
And I absolutely agree with them monetizing this, right? If they do a series of if they do, let's call it 16 weeks of an adventure or 12 weeks of an adventure, and at the end of it, they offer to sell you the module, and you liked what you saw or heard, why not sell the module? Why not sell the event?
Actually, it's brilliant bringing it in-house and not relying on Critical Role to be pushing your brand. This way, you have more control over whatever the message is, and in the end, you're promoting your own material. It is synergy. It is what a brand manager should be doing, is leveraging different aspects of the brand to support itself.
Sure,
I think it's actually is it something that I'm going to enjoy? No, but there's a huge amount of people that love this stuff.
I think this is smart. I don't fault them for it. I think it's, all right. I believe that our beloved chat has many times taken them to task for the way they've monetized the hell out of D&D Beyond. But frankly, this is a much more. I think of this as a much more reasonable way of doing this, right? Like,
it's a soft sell.
Here are the people playing it, and if you want to have the home version, buy the home version. How many of us played? And again, we always go back to this: G123, D123, Q1. How many of us played at a friend's house and then went out and bought the modules that we played in? And I'm okay with that. I'm totally okay with that. I mean, Wednesday night is a release night for a lot of content. Amazon likes to drop shows on Wednesday night. Paramount likes to drop shows on Wednesday night. A lot of people like to do the midweek because they feel like They feel like they've got a shot at capturing more of an audience. What the hell? I think it's fine. I have no problems with this. I have no criticisms of this. I do like the fact that one of the dudes that they cast, God love his heart, he's got bags under his eyes that might come close to mine. And I'm happy about that. I'm just fine. I think it's great. And
so it looks like what I'm looking at their a couple of them are minor actors, minor stuff. Another one is a voice actor. So yeah, that they're all taken from the same. For those that don't know, that was kind of the same pool of characters that Critical Role. I mean, Ashley Johnson she was on she was on a show I watched. I can't remember. She did 4 or 5 seasons. I mean, they were all minor actors. They did a lot of voice acting. They did a lot of video stuff. So yeah, it's the same. They're going from the same pool of. These are people that are used to doing dramatic presentations.
Right.
And so if we're going to dramatically present these modules, then we need somebody that's going to. We don't need Tankar, Jim Kitchen,
and honestly, I mean, John Miller, a televised D&D tournament, yeah, people in our circles might be interested, but you're going to not get 90% of 5e players, more so, won't care. And it's the 5e players that they're looking for, and that's great. We know that there's a market for that. Critical Role success isn't a fluke.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a combination of the right audience, the right material, and the right people producing it. And WotC is trying to.
If it wasn't for Critical Role, landfills across the United States wouldn't be filled with plastic garbage that didn't sell. That was based on Critical Role. It serves an important part of the ecosphere.
Right.
I mean, I can't understand why nobody wanted to buy the Goofy robot toy they gave us for free at Gen Con, because nobody wanted to get the Goofy robot toy.
Oh.
I am surprised. I am so surprised. But I just
having said all this, so you don't have to like it. They don't care if you like it, if we like it or not.
That's
and
right.
You don't have to like it.
No.
I'm ambivalent. It matters to me not one iota. I'm never going to watch a second of it. I don't care. I don't really care to watch other people play D&D as it is.
I don't watch Critical Role, but I will say this: I tried watching what they put out that time when they were trying to have their network, and it was like, what was it? Run Purple Worm, run, or some crap like that.
Die Purple Worm, die.
Purple Worm.
Which actually is still on. If you have a Samsung TV that's hooked up to the internet, you get all the free Samsung channels, and the D&D channel alternates between cartoons, the D&D cartoon in the mornings and afternoons, and Die Purple Worm, Die through the evenings and overnight. And so that's like the only 2 things on that channel. And I watched 2 minutes of it by accident one night, and I was just like,
2 whole minutes.
And here's the thing: I've watched a little bit of Critical Role, and it wasn't my cup of tea, but I could see the appeal for people. That wasn't what was, Die Purple Worm didn't have that magic. That little clip that I saw, that 1 minute clip, which I actually said to myself, I wish it was longer, which scares the hell out of me, but I wish it was longer because I was interested enough to watch it, which is more than I could do with Die Purple Worm. And that means that they have more of an idea of what they're doing this time. And it isn't just get it out. It's all right, let's do it and do it right. So we shall see.
It's like anything that's popular. It's like anything that's popular. You're going to have, once something's popular, you're going to have a million knockoffs, and that happens in TV shows, music, any form of entertainment. Once something becomes semi-popular, once Dresden Files became popular, then now there's 8 authors trying to write Wizard in Chicago stories, that kind of stuff. So it's just a tried and true formula, right?
I'm really of the belief that this also fills a niche that we don't talk about, right? I mean, the problem is that we are the old beardy guys. I'm sorry, 2 of you are beardy, I am not, and nobody needs to see that much white. But most of the people in our chat, most of the people and so on, have been around enough role-playing games that they know how to run a game. They know how to be a DM, or they've been exposed to good DMs and they've simply ignored it. But whatever. They've all had an opportunity to see how a game is played. But we always forget the people who are new in the hobby and are just starting out, who need, frankly, a little bit of hand holding and a little bit of guidance. Now, the problem is Critical Role went too far in one direction. Critical Role went to the forsooth, yea, bard, speak to meeth of the seduction of the orc. I don't care. I just don't care.
It didn't start out like that though, Jim. Because I remember early episodes, it was not like that. But yes, they leaned heavy into that eventually.
Yes, but the problem is that it then became, if I'm not an amateur thespian, I don't think I should play role-playing games. And that's not the case. What they need to see, frankly, what I would like to see dungeon masters have, and I will mention this the next time I talk to somebody from Wizards, what I would like to see is, I don't want to see just pretty people or moderately attractive people, but one of the things that I had the most fun with in the last 10 years was at the Century Box, there was a pack of kids who used to show up every Saturday, and they filled a table and they had a great time. And every time you'd walk by the table, you'd hear these kids, and it sounded like Chip and Dale playing Dungeons and Dragons, right? Like they're just so excited and so on. I would love to see the Dungeon Masters show have a bunch of 12, 13, 14-year-old kids running a game, and we all just get to see how much fun that would be.
Yeah.
But
now that would be fun. That would be
fun. And those kids who don't know how to run a game, kids who get the basic set, like the great thing is that Dungeon Masters could have a whole playlist of how to get started being a DM, right? Where the woman who's the dungeon master can say, preparation is important. For every hour of the game, a couple of hours of prep is probably good. Blah 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 blah. But she could walk through all those different things, and this is sort of like, I know everybody's tired of this, but this is a bit like what Games Workshop did with painting, where they put thousands of step-by-step guides for painting miniatures on YouTube, where literally you do a search for the miniature and you can find the step-by-steps on how to get the miniature to look like what it looks like in Games Workshop's pictures and box sets and so on and so forth. I think this is a win-win, an absolute win-win.
Oh, definitely. Like I said, this is what we were expecting from a person put in charge of all aspects of the IP, bringing all those aspects together. So I think this is a good sign for the future. Personally.
Yes, I don't want to get down a rat hole with some of our esteemed commenters, but yes, I heard more. I had a conversation with somebody today. I had a great conversation. I heard more things that give me confidence. And again, I think I've said this before, you cannot turn the wheel of the super tanker and expect it to heal around quickly. But there is no doubt that the wheel has been turned in different directions and the ship is going in a different direction. So we'll see. And I think this is another step in the right direction.
This is a whole, this is a whole facet of the hobby that if you don't want to pay attention to it, you don't have to. It's not affecting. Right. It's not affecting anything we're doing. It has really no links or connections to the OSR. It's just a thing that's happening out there. Whether we like it or hate it or not like it or whatever, it's going to have no effect on the games we play, on the conventions we play. It's just a thing. It's just something out there. They're doing it. They're going to throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. All they have to do is be more knowledgeable than remember was it the Gen Con staff, Eric, that you and I watched their show once and we were just absolutely appalled because
I don't know if it was staff, but it was a Gen Con channel.
God.
It was painful when they didn't know how many Gygax they were going to talk about the Gygax show.
Is Ernie Luke's dad? Yeah. Is Ernie Luke's dad?
Yes.
Who is Gygax? It was bad, Jim. It was bad. And these were 4 representatives of Gen Con that were doing a pre-Gen Con show. And I understand that show went away very quickly because apparently somebody may have called them whose last name might have been Gygax and complained that they thought.
don't give me so much material that I'm just going to talk for 2 hours. You just can't do that. So
slow down.
So I think, somebody mentioned the Ren Fair problem, and I agree with this, right? I think Ren Fairs used to be interesting. A long time ago in the 90s, there was a comic book called Milk and Cheese: Dairy Products Gone Bad. And one of my favorite strips they did 4, like Evan Dorkin did 3 or 4 panels of story. But one time, Milk and Cheese went to the Renaissance Fair.
Oh boy.
And Milk and Cheese wandered around the Renaissance Fair until they finally had their limit of fairy elf talk. And when they finally lost their top and start screaming at people about, it sums up my experience with Ren Fairs and why I'm weary of Ren Fairs. The most innovative thing that I have seen at a Ren Fair in the last 10 years are the people who dress up in Star Trek the original series costumes and roam around a Ren Fair pretending to be that they're from the Federation. And
that's a great bit. That is a great bit.
Genius. That they're visiting a primitive planet with their tricorders, and the girls have the little mini. Like it's just genius. It's just women have the short skirts, and the guys are all perfect, and somebody's a Vulcan, and they've got the old tricorders, and it's just wonderful. I again, if there are people that are outraged by this move by Wizards for Dungeon Masters, I think that you just woke up and you're also the person who likes to be angry at the weather, right? Weather is weather. You can't control it. This isn't like that it isn't like that Flint movie from the 60s. You can't control the weather. Getting angry at the weather isn't going to change the weather, and getting angry at Wizards for doing something that makes sense to Wizards and everybody else, you may not like it, but just let it go. Go out in the rain with an umbrella. If the rain bothers you, get an umbrella. You'll be okay.
Everything's baby steps too. It's like we have people in our comments that get outraged that even though guys like Perkins and Crawford are gone, things haven't immediately reverted back to 1991. And we're putting out another Forgotten Realms box set with Ed Greenwood and the World of Great, and they get mad because things don't happen as quick as they want them to happen. And those things may never happen, at least not the way you think they're going to happen. But change is incremental, and change does happen, and that's what you look for. You look for how the change is going to happen incrementally. And look, this is something that doesn't bother me, or I don't care. I don't care
either. No. I don't care either, right? Like there's no part of my soul that is troubled by. I mean, I think it's smart and I think it's clever, and I appreciate it from that perspective. But I'm not getting. I got nothing else.
I'm with you.
I got nothing else. But somebody mentioned there's another channel that's interviewing Mike McVeigh and Andy Chambers. I have some really funny Mike McVeigh stories, and I have some really funny Andy Chambers stories. At one point, every time somebody would come over for Games Day, I had a spare bedroom in my apartment, and sometimes folks would stay with me. So Andy Chambers stayed in my apartment with his lovely wife. She's just great.
Yes.
I'm trying to think. I don't know. I think Wizards has a lot of things going on right now. I think there's a lot of interesting things going on at Wizards right now. And I think this will all come to fruition, and we'll see what happens at Gen Con, and we'll see what happens over the next few months and the next year. And so I'm very interested to see. I think this is a smart thing. They apparently have some really nifty room with a table and fancy walls and sconces and whatnot that is their secret play area or whatever. My God, however much that costs to build, they better be filming in it. And I'm sure we'll see more of it. And I think, again, it's a smart move. I like smart moves.
It's not a dumb move. Can we say that? It's not like the complete S show that we've seen roll out of WotC the last few years, which God knows that hasn't been
there for a moment. All right, let's see.
So you're back.
I got a blank chat screen. Let's see.
And I think, I mean, I don't want to put words into people's mouths, but I think that new leadership at Dungeons and Dragons wants to sell Dungeons and Dragons to everybody that's interested in Dungeons and Dragons, not just a small slice of the market.
Because old people have money too, Jim. It turns out.
Strangely enough,
Really?
many different levels and stratifications of however you want to divide Dungeons and Dragons enthusiasts up. There's a lot more people than just one slice that want to buy things, and I think that's great. Now, do we want to talk about revelationary numbers? Do we
Sure.
I talked about this with you, Mike, so I guess maybe this is something interesting to talk about. Your mileage may vary. That's the Jim Kitchen blanket statement on whatever you want, what I'm about to talk about. So your local game store may be entirely different.
Oh, okay.
And I wish them all the best. But I was part of a conversation last night where somebody was talking about the kinds of numbers that they order in of different products. And we were talking about 3 publishers. We were talking about Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons. We were talking about Goodman Games. And we were talking about Paizo. And so Mike and I had a conversation earlier this afternoon, so I'm going to back up a little bit to that. Mike and I were talking about the rise of Paizo. Now, if you don't remember, Paizo really sort of got going when Wizards decided to spin off Dragon and Dungeon and get rid of publishing magazines on a monthly basis. Paizo took that over. Paizo sort of perfected adventure paths at the same time. And then as 3.5, 4.0 sort of landed with a resounding thud, Paizo leaned into they had created Pathfinder as a setting, and then they launched it as its own role-playing game. And I don't know, what do you think about a good solid 10-year run?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So for about 10 years, Paizo was.
But by the way, they outsold D&D at least 2 of those years, I believe. I mean, that's how much that thing blew up. This is when 4E was the hot number from.
Well, it wasn't hot. It was.
Yeah, it wasn't
I
hot.
call it tepid. It was tepid. It wasn't even lukewarm. It didn't even reach room temperature. It never thawed. But Paizo was a big effing deal for the first, from about, what would you say, 2000 to 2010, Mike? Would you?
Yeah, right in that. Yeah, right after. Well, no, not 2000, because they really took off when WotC decided they were going to move from 3E, which at the time was extremely popular. 3.5 was very popular, but they just said, no, we're going to move to 4E because we're moving to 4E.
Yep.
So you can have 3E. And they're like, thank you very much for this present of a game that is extremely popular right now. And it was. People, I can't tell you how many people I knew that played 3.5 that just went over to Pathfinder. They're like, okay, well, I'll just play Pathfinder now. And they didn't even bother with 4E. They didn't care about WotC, D&D, or whatever. They just wanted to play the game that they've been playing since the year 2000.
Well, and the thing is, because Paizo had established themselves as a legitimate publisher and caretaker of D&D because of Dragon and Dungeon.
They did a good job with Dungeon. And by the way, Dragon Dungeon Magazine also sold well too. That they didn't go under because they were selling terrible. They went under because WotC once again just wanted to get rid of them. And Paizo was doing them. Like, okay, well, we're gonna cut it off, and it's done, and we're gonna move on from there. But they did very well under Paizo.
So coming back to this conversation I was a part of yesterday, one of the things that was really interesting was the store. There was discussion about a store, a good, successful, strong, friendly local game store, an established store. They've been there for 20 plus years, and they were talking about the kinds of numbers that they order in these 3 different product lines. And what is staggering is just the numbers. So for every new Dungeons and Dragons release, they order an astronomical number, but it all breaks down to this: for every 100 copies. So when a new D&D book comes out, they order 100. They order more than that, but the percentages are, for every 100 copies that they order of the Dungeons and Dragons book, they order 1 of the new Paizo release. 100 to 1. Now, the other one is Goodman Games. Now, the Goodman Games number is larger, substantially larger, but it varies by what the product is. So it could be one. It could be 10 to 100, 10 versus the 100. It could be larger than that, but whatever. But still, it comes down to this. It comes down to the fact that at this store, Dungeons and Dragons is outselling Paizo 100 to 1, D&D versus Pathfinder. And that Goodman Games, who used to be, the lower rung of the ladder, is now outselling Paizo on a magnitude of 10 to 20 times as much. And so how did we get there, right? So I think you can look at how Pathfinder, the revision of Pathfinder that came out 6 or 7 years ago, you can look at how that was launched. One of the things that came up is Paizo has never been what I will call retailer friendly, where they have frequently had sales on their entire back catalog for half off because they print it. They wrote it, they created it, they print it, and they're selling it. If they sell it at 50% off MSRP, they're still getting enough margin to make it successful. Now, these are all very, very interesting things, but it really points to how incredibly strong 5.0 was for the better part of a decade, and how it just completely decimated a lot of other role-playing game publishers. But it also brings up what I was talking about last night and today, that Goodman Games absolutely has a better ground game than Paizo by a factor, again, of tenfold. If you go on tabletop events, and I did this yesterday, if you go on tabletop events and you look at all the conventions for April and May, and you look at the events, pick conventions in towns, cities over 25, 50,000 people, pick big cities. I don't care. Slice the data however you want. But if you go on to these conventions on tabletop events and you look at events and you then do a search on Pathfinder, and Pathfinder will usually bring up Pathfinder/Starfinder. What you'll see is one of the conventions, I think, is in Boston, and a quarter of the games, I think there were 50 odd Pathfinder games, a quarter of those games, like an eighth to a quarter of them were completely full, but the rest of them had 1 to 2 people, which means those games aren't going to go.
Right.
And this is with a couple of weeks to go out. Now, the exercise that I didn't do is I didn't do a look at Dungeon Crawl Classics, but Dungeon Crawl Classics is absolutely crushing it. And we've talked about this on the show, North Texas, when you look at GaryCon and so on and so forth. And in so many conventions, Paizo has simply yielded the space. At GaryCon, where Paizo used to have the Pathfinder Society in a big way, that entire swath of space is now Shadow Dark. Wow. And I think that's another interesting thing. So my point to all of this is, and I'm not an engineer. My point to this is that numbers don't lie. That if you want to have a successful game company, you have to keep creating new customers. You have to play a ground game on the ground. You have to talk about your game with people who haven't played your game. And Goodman has incentivized people playing at local stores with tchotchkes, right? You accrue points and you get swag, and you do more demo games and you get swag. And when you look at the Gen Con game events, Goodman's everywhere, and they're everywhere, like at all these little small conventions as well. They've really incentivized people doing demo games and getting people exposed to DCC, which then gets people to buy DCC, which then gets people to buy more stuff. And in the end, that's what keeps these companies going. And I went on the Paizo website last night. I'll take another look. I'm pretty sure, I can't imagine they've discontinued the sale. But if I go to the store right now, everything at Paizo, there is a gigantic spring cleaning sale, and literally everything Starfinder is half off. And think about this: if you're a retail store that carried Starfinder when it came out, and you've been plugging along trying to get MSRP, or you have an incentive scheme that gives 10 or 15% off in the store or whatnot, how do you compete with that?
Yeah.
And why would you compete with that when you have a publisher that's so determined to undercut you that it just removes all the reason to carry it? And again, retailer support is tremendous in this country, in all countries. Retailers want to feel like the company whose line they carry cares about them. And this brings us back to Wizards. Wizards used to be direct. Wizards used to be, they used to deal directly with stores. They backed off of that in a big way. Paizo has never dealt directly with stores, but with Dungeon Crawl Classics, literally you drop them an email and Goodman will throw you a gigantic promotional pack for in-store. And again, I think smart companies, and there's a ton of smart companies out there. Trollord is a smart company. But smart companies should start looking at this. They should steal Goodman's model. They should steal Goodman's ground game about getting involved in stores and conventions. And frankly, if I was Paizo, whoever is in charge of getting gaming going, now don't get me wrong, there are a couple of conventions that I found where clearly there's an active Paizo presence to be at this show. But the problem is exactly what I kept seeing in the numbers when I was looking last night, and that was that you might have this many games, but only this many of them are actually going to get played to fruition because there's only these are the only ones with full tables.
What you're talking about literally is building a community, because your community are your best sellers.
That's right.
Goodman is great at building a community. It's like watching missionaries go out and talk up your game. The same with Shadow Dark. Now, Paizo, do you remember last year at Page when they had no DMs show up for Pathfinder?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that was
pretty hard to run your game when you don't have people show up.
Seriously annoyed email from somebody at Paizo for even talking about it and saying that they were going to fix it. And you couldn't fix it. The con was already done. But the reality is that's a huge misstep. And when you do that at a major convention, and Page is a major convention, it gets known amongst other conventions.
So interestingly, so somebody raises a point. How's that any different from buying 5e material, 5 point whatever material from Amazon? Okay, Amazon does deep discount. Don't get me wrong. I know that. You're absolutely right. But usually it's core books. Like you used to be able to get the player's handbook for like 40% off and so on and so forth.
Not anymore.
And Timmy's mom Timmy's mom and grandparents might buy it and so on and so forth. But for the most part, people walk into a game store, they're going to buy a player's handbook. My point is the entire frickin' Starfinder line is on 50% off on Paizo right now. And I didn't even bother to look at Pathfinder and Pathfinder whatever 2.0, but I'll look. What the hell?
Do it.
I'm doing it now. I'm going there now. But I don't think, there's a big difference between a retailer competing with one or two products. And everybody understands about players' handbooks, DMs, guides, monster manuals. There's no store. If your store is bent about Amazon on that, they got bigger issues.
Yeah.
They got much bigger issues.
You beat Amazon by customer service. You don't beat Amazon.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah. That's why you support your friendly local because they're friendly.
Right.
Yeah.
And
yes. Everything Pathfinder is half off in the store as well. Everything in the store is half off.
Oh.
And so why as a retailer would you carry Pathfinder or Starfinder? I don't know. Because frankly, at this point, you could buy it for 50 off. You could put it out in your store at 25% off and get some margin, but nobody's buying it because nobody's playing it. I'm sorry. There are people who play. Now to the events that I saw, there are people going to like the convention I saw in Boston, and they have signed up, but at this point, I love them, but they're the Pathfinder grognards. These are the people that I am surrounded by all my Pathfinder books. My friend Keith, I've known him since 5th grade. And at one point, the D&D group back home, like everybody else, migrated to Pathfinder, and they played Pathfinder forever. But I will never forget Keith bitching about how he was the guy running the game and he was going to have to go to somebody's house, and this meant 3 milk crates in the back of his car. And he had to have the 3 milk crates worth of books so that he could stay on top of having the rules for whatever came up during the game.
Oh, Jesus.
And he's just like, at least I get a workout, lugging it out, putting it in the car, putting it in the house, taking it, and so on. Yeah, yes. And I think that's the other interesting thing is that Pathfinder begat an entire generation of people who expected to have rules for every scenario.
Yep.
We got away from wing it, and we ended up with we have to have something for everything. Hold on, I'm sorry, I forgot. It's Arduin back scratcher moment. Hold on.
You have to take a break for your Arduin back scratching. Do it at home. Do it at home. Come on.
And I again I've been friends with Lisa Stevens from Paizo since 1993. I don't wish her, this is her company. She owns it. She stepped away. Somebody asked, what the hell's a Faygo? If there is a soda that's actually lower on the food chain than RC, it's Faygo.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Insane Clown Posse. Magnets, how do they work? So I'm very interested in this sort of stuff because I think, again, I always talk about the middle powers. I always talk about, you've got Games Workshop and Wizards of the Coast at what I would call the top of the chain. And then you have the middle powers. And the middle powers are people, they're companies that employ 5, 10, 15, 20, however many, who are producing stuff that's actually just tearing through a large swath. They sell. And this is Arcane Library. This is Trollord Games. This is Goodman Games. This is Paizo. Those are the middle powers. The lower up and coming are the folks that they're still printing at Kinko's. They're selling zines. They have regional presence, but they don't,
Or it could be somebody like to say Frog Eye Games. They have all contractors. They only have like maybe 2 or 3 employees. Yeah. There's a lot of companies like that. I think Green Ronin's like that. They only have.
Well, Green Ronin is a middle. I would put them squarely in the middle.
But they don't really have a staff. They just have like contractors.
But there's an ownership crew, and there is an ownership core of 3, and then there's a subsidiary of OnStyle. I think there's another 5 or 10 people. But like I heard a number today of how many people are responsible for the Dungeons and Dragons books that we see every year, right? And I don't want to get into the specifics of that, but I was staggered by the number because it was larger than I would have expected for the output that we see. And I thought that was very telling. I thought that was very interesting. And I would say that one of the most striking things we see is you can produce a great RPG supplement that does not require a team of 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 people. There are groups of people of 5 to 10 people who are producing things that are selling very, very well. And it demonstrates the power of the publishing model as it is right now, and then hiring talent for work instead of having staff artists. This is all great. Like, this is all fabulous. But I think you have companies like Paizo that are 25 plus years old, and they need to adapt to the times. And I don't think that they have very quickly. And that's unfortunate.
So I wanted to say a couple of things. I wanted to let you say your piece, though, Jim. But I want to say a few things. First of all, one of the things that when a game company does right, and when it does this right, it works out really well. And I know for a long time when Frog Eye Games had Swords of Wizardry, we did it right. Trollord Games does it right, and as you said, DCC does it right. Is you cultivate a very loyal audience of people that will buy whatever you put out because there's a certain quality, but also because you cultivate more of a personal relationship with them than most of these bigger game companies do. And you do that by going to conventions and interacting them. One of the great things that Goodman Games and DCC does is they have an entire network of these people that travel all over the United States and go to cons and run games, and they're all, and they go to the warehouse sale every year, and they go to and so they're very connected. They have a newsletter. This is all something that anybody that loves DCC can get into, and to various degrees. Trollord Games has that same group, but that's what you do. You cultivate this relationship. Shadow Dark is an up and comer in that. I mean, go to Shadow Dark's Discord. It's great. It's a great Discord. You go there, it's people having fun and talking and giving suggestions. There's there's not people ripping on each other and saying you're doing it wrong and I hate you and this sucks or whatever. No, it's very well curated. And so Shadow Dark is becoming that kind of a genre also, in terms of everybody that is part of it proselytizes it. I mean, look at the people that play DCC. They're proselytizers.
Oh, come on. The joke is hashtag not a cult, right? And they've leaned into the joke, and I think that's great.
They lean into it. But they make it fun, and they do everything they can to make you want to play in the game, to make running the games fun, to make feel like you're part of this family. And that's really hard for a bigger company like WotC or like Paizo or like some other these other big companies. That's really hard for them to get that across, because they have to be something for everybody. They have to, because they're just such a gigantic company. They can't go down to an individual level and make you feel like you're part of the team. It's just not something they do. And so the companies that do this best, I think we were talking the other night, Jim, we had to talk about convention, loyalty of conventions. Like, to talk about what makes a convention, which is something we probably need to talk about sometime. What makes a convention succeed, what makes it not succeed. We have all these small conventions. What is going to make these small conventions reach 18 years like North Texas has? And one of the things we talked about was customer loyalty. We have these same people that have been coming to our convention for 5, 10, 15 years. And it's a family reunion. They come, they know everybody. They know the shtick that's going to happen. Everything is familiar to them. And everything built around the convention makes them feel like they are part of the family. And there's a few other conventions. I think TotalCon does that to an extent also. There's conventions that do that. They cultivate this, you're part of the family thing. If I was either starting a small convention, or if I was starting a small game company, absolutely, that's what I would lean into. I would lean into making sure that the people who bought my product, the people that came to my convention, felt like they are part of the family and they are part of the entire system. Because that's why you're going to, and we talk the same thing when we had the big, the last 20, 30 years, we've had this huge excess of brick and mortar comic and sci-fi and game stores. And the ones that survive, the ones that stick around, are the ones that provide a superior customer service. That's the ones that survive. They've built up a customer base, and these people, they will buy something there that costs more than it does on Amazon, just to support that store and so they can interact with the people there. And I've seen this year after year after year. Why can't you get that cheaper? Could you get that cheaper at Amazon? Yeah, I don't care. I'm going to go buy it at my local game store. I don't know if the importance of this is in any way understand. I mean, if it can be understated. This is something that will keep you going, and a lot. I would say, even like let's say Greg Gillespie's Dragon Slayer. He's built up a little bit of this. He has people that they'll play Dragon Slayer, and they've played all the mega dungeons, and they have everything he's done, and they will talk about, they'll go to conventions and they'll run Dragon Slayer stuff. So I mean, all the successful smaller game companies have this group of people, and I think that this is something, like I said, cannot be overstated, that you need to set this kind of thing up. I guess the next question is, the bigger company, like the WotCs or let's just say let's use Paizo since we're talking about Paizo anyway. At this point, what can Paizo do to get that audience back? Okay. I mean, because I think they had that audience at one time. I really think they may have had that.
I'll tell you what I would do. Like, if you magically made me in charge of Paizo, the first thing I'd do is I'd cut 10% of the company's labor, because I think you've probably got dead wood that's been there for a while, and it's time to move them on to greener pastures. That sounds ruthless, but there are people at Paizo that have let this happen. Eric has this story about how was it you, Eric, that got the email about don't talk about what happened at Page?
Yeah, pretty much. And if you have
Right.
questions, feel free to email me, which I did, and then I didn't.
Sure. So what I would do is I would drag that person's name out in public, and I would point this out and say this was a failing. This was a failing of somebody at Paizo to not make sure the T's were crossed and the I's were dotted. And I've heard similar stories from other people, which is why when you said that out loud, I was like, oh, because I heard about this last night as well. So that tells me that there's people who are not in the right positions, and you should just punt them on to greener pastures. The next thing is, I understand why they do the sales. They're paying inventory they're paying inventory dollars for inventory that isn't moving quickly, sure. And it's at some point what they have to do is they just have to decide to pulp back stock and write it down, and take the deduction and back off of the sales that are burning bridges with people who carry their products otherwise. And I have been hearing about the Paizo sales for the better part of 20 years. I've heard about it at the Source Comics and Games. I've heard about it at the Century Box. I've heard it at every game store I've been in, where if you ask about Pathfinder, the first words from the guy who owns the store and makes the orders is, I'm not carrying, they just compete with me. Fuck them. And that that's a pretty clear message. And if people at Paizo aren't getting that message, then they need to decide. Paizo needs to decide, we aren't going to try to make products to be carried by retail stores. We're only going to make products that are bought by this incredibly small group of people that are still hanging around. And let me tell you why that doesn't work. 2 words: privateer press. Privateer Press came out of 2000 and was absolutely determined to be the tournament miniatures game. And they absolutely became the tournament miniatures game. They honed the rules. They listened to people. They made corrections on an annual basis. They had all these tournaments. But the problem is they went after the single most argumentative slice of the miniature gaming market. And then when they got it, they found out that part of the market that is so hyper competitive and so wrapped up so tightly they squeak when they walk is not enough people to have a growing, thriving miniatures company. And they had other lines. They had Monster Apocalypse, and Lord knows I got an entire container of those little buildings.
They were huge at one point.
They were huge.
Let's
Let's draw the similarities. They're both in Washington State. They were both in Bellevue. They were both huge at one point. And what happened to them after that? Now Privateer had management issues. Privateer had a lot of problems, but they're going the route of Privateer, and Privateer got bought or sold off to somebody, I think a year or two ago. But at one point they went to the direct model. We're going to have the subscription. You can get our really incredibly priced resin mod.
Oh yeah.
And it died. They didn't have enough subscribers, and they kept the death of 1,000 cuts. They kept cutting people and cutting people and cutting people. So then the next thing is, you got to go to Gamma and you got to do a mea culpa and say, you know what? We burned our bridges with you guys over the last 10, 15 years with our sales and the way we've handled things. We didn't listen to you. And at the same time, you're at Gamma trying to convince retailers to carry your line again. I would have everybody associated with Pathfinder go out to stores and go to stores that have run Pathfinder events and talk to people. Why do you still play Pathfinder? I'm really curious. Why in God's green earth are you still playing Pathfinder? What is it that we have that 5th edition 5.5 that nobody else has? Listen to what they say, right? If you still have
bring anybody new in, I mean that's
right, they're not. But you need to go back to the drawing board and recognize that
you have to grow. You have to bring in new people. You can't just have the people that left 3E in 2009 and count on those people, 20 years later.
Do you know what Goodman sells their Dungeon Crawl Classics rule book for at conventions? Do you know how much?
$10?
$10.
Yeah, the paperback.
$10. You can get the damn game for $10. Why on God's green earth is Pathfinder? I mean, if I was Paizo, I would take a look, because if you look, all the leather-bound copies of Starfinder and Pathfinder and all, they're still sitting around. but if it was me, I would go to a retailer and say, here's the deal, right? Like, what's our cost? What's our cost at Pathfinder at $1? I will sell you these copies I will sell you a box of Pathfinder starting soft covers at whatever the cost is. Call it $6 or $7. I will sell you those at $7 a piece, and you sell them for whatever you want, whatever you think you can. We're just curious if you can get anybody to give Pathfinder a try. And I would clear the inventory out. I would set my Pathfinder team to creating 3.0, and I would have them go out and put boots on the ground and talk to everybody, yada, 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 yada. And I mean, that's it. Otherwise, it's the death of 1,000 cuts, and they're going to wind up like Privateer Press. And they're a lot closer to Privateer Press than they have, than they may even realize.
Ouch.
And if I'm wrong, if you genuinely believe that I am batshit crazy and I'm not reading this the right way, the comments are here for you, my friends. But I don't think I am. It's a joke. You know, if you go to a store now with Pathfinder collections, you would be lucky to get pennies on the dollar.
Oh man,
my local game store, their big selling number for years was 5e, but their second big selling number was Pathfinder for years and years. In the last 2 years, you know how much Pathfinder they carry now, Jim? They carry less than 10%. Their big sellers now are still 5e, but it's Call of Cthulhu.
Okay.
And just jumped. Not in the OSR, Call of Cthulhu and BattleTech, the miniatures, and they do a lot of BattleTech miniatures. But that's their big sellers now. Pathfinder is this little tiny square down here at the bottom that's got some old venture paths and a couple books because the whole market moved away from that.
Well, I went to the complete. I didn't go this year, but went last year. Complete Strategies in Manhattan, and I was like, "Where's the Pathfinder section?" Because it had shrunk to like next to nothing, except for like those blister pack minis or boxed minis that they sell. I was very surprised because it was always something that took up a whole shelving section, and then I was like, "Oh, go figure." But and that is, I wonder with Paizo if their aborted MMO had anything to do.
No, but the funds for that were separate.
They were.
Like Ryan Dancy was very clear. He was the guy in charge of that project. They kept the funds very, very separate from that. Like, let's not even have that. Like, let's not even, don't summon that genie. It doesn't fly.
Okay.
But
not ill. Yes.
But I think it comes back to if they eke along and they cover people's salaries, how is the company growing? How is the company getting better? And what are you making that's going to capture people's attention? And their big presence every year at Gen Con, they have a good sized booth and they give out a lot of buttons and they have some special events and they have a core group of people that show up, and that's great. But across the country at friendly local game stores in every state and every province in North America, Pathfinder's a wasteland.
And they canceled their con, I believe, 2 years ago. Also,
PaizoCon is dead.
Yeah, yes. It's gone. PaizoCon's gone, which is, PaizoCon was weird anyway. I don't want to get into it. It's a long story. How they sold stuff. You could only sell Paizo stuff. It's a long story, but it was a weird con anyway. But it was in Washington State, and presumably where a lot of the Pathfinder people are, and it just slowly, after COVID, it just slowly faded away.
So I'm going to segue. We got a request, and I'm going to segue, right? So I think one of the smartest things that Paizo ever did was they came up with adventure paths where they do 5 or 6 softcover books that were one adventure, like modules, right? And so what are our favorite old school modules? We talk about this on the show all the time, but it's a great transition. I think Paizo had some great stuff. The Rune Lords was the first of the adventure paths that came out hard and came out
very
really,
good.
really
it's
strong.
Still very good. You can read it. It's still really good.
Knights, the one with the drow trying to bring about the end of the sun was a great one as well.
Kingmaker was
good. There's a lot,
really good. Yeah.
But like we are evenly split. I think Mike is a big fan of B2. He loves B2.
Well, B1 and B2.
B1 is my favorite. That was my first one, and I love the fact that it wasn't keyed and I had to do that.
Right.
B2 is great because it's Gary's. When Gary found out how much money Mike Carr was making from B1, he wrote B2, and they no longer put B1 in the box sets.
Dude, I want a piece of that.
That's right.
Hell yeah. I want that check.
And so enthusiastically, B2 is a very different module. It is keyed. But when you sort of step back and you look at B2, it is chaos. It is the caves of chaos, right? But it gave us things like Bree Yark and so on. I am a passionate believer in G123, D123, Q1. I think that's a great set of modules. You have so much to play with that and enjoy in that. That a lot of things that came after that, I like A1 through 4, but not nearly as much as I love G123, D123, Q1, because your characters progress so much over the course of those 7 modules that by the time you get to Q1, like you start G1, I'm a fighter, I'm going to kill something. And you deal with hill giants, and then you deal with frost giants, and then you deal with fire giants, and who are these weird dark elves, and so on and so forth. And it's a lot of fun. Those are my.
For me, I'm going to
have what do you mean by I'd like to know what the def. You go ahead.
All right, sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm going in and out, so I didn't interrupt you. I'm off a little bit.
All right. I'm gonna have to say that for me, my most as a DM, what I ran the most was T1 to 4. I ran it in 3 separate campaigns. Finished it in 2 of them. One, the party decided to go in different directions after a couple of sessions, but I enjoyed it because it was a little setting. It was for me, it was a mega dungeon. It was big enough. But it was something that your players could have a goal to achieve, and it didn't play out the same way anytime. So that's why I was enjoying T1 to 4. All right, Mike, take it.
So I'm gonna take old school as meaning 1E and back because I have a lot of really stuff I like for 2E also, but I'm gonna say let's go old school. Let's say 1985 and back. And so my group, I didn't have time. I always thought it was amazing that people had time to write their own stuff because I was in college. I had a job. I had no time to do any of that stuff. So we just ran pre-generated modules and I strung them all together to make campaigns. And I guess at one point I was running like 2 or 3 different campaigns. I ran a group through G1 through the whole GDQ series. They finished in 1984. We had a big game. It was awesome. We finally finished it with their characters. I had another group that I ran through the A series. I had another group that I ran through all other various stuff, and I would just kind of string it together. But if you look at, and I would also say something else, nostalgia is a hell of a drug.
Oh my God, it's a powerful drug.
You look at some of that stuff now, it's not very good.
It's crap.
It's
not Scottish. It's crap.
And so if I would look at something now and saying this is still something I would run because I think it's different, it's interesting. I think Thurisdan is a really WG4 is a very interesting module. It's part tactical combat and it's part outdoor hex crawl and it's part horror. It's one of the few D&D modules that has kind of a horror aspect, which is when you get to the lower level of the temple and you enter Thurisdan's lair, and it's as all F. And I've always enjoyed that module. I think it's great. Of course, the modules I've run most of my life are B1 and B2. They're just lend themselves so well to teaching young people how to play, and they're very easy for the DM to change however they want to change. But yeah, Thurisdan's a really good one. I ran T1 through 4. I ran the A series, ran the S series. I like all those. I like them all in different ways, and a lot of it is because when I run it, I can remember
when I first ran it. It connects back to memories you have. Like I said, nostalgia is a hell of a drug.
Yes.
But I don't run a lot of them now anymore because I look at it as, there's been so much stuff that's come out since, let's say, 1985. I mean, we have 40 years of other stuff that's being published. I try to run other things because a lot of people in my group, like right now, I'm running, my group is running through Dwaro Deep, which is a Greg Gillespie underground dwarven kingdom, and you're trying to rescue it from Duro and Durgar, and it's been abandoned for 250 years. It's got a lot of themes that my party of adventurers like. This is the same group that went through the D series with me back in the late 70s. The same guys that played that. We're together again, and we're playing that. But I try to look at newer stuff, and I'll run it just to see if I get that same buzz. Like, this is really cool. Like this brings me back to that older feel. And I just think there's so much new stuff that I don't think that people should always be running the same thing over and over and over again. Well, like I'll be in a forum and people are like, I really want to run one of the 1E modules. What should I run? And they get the same suggestions. It's always the same, 5 or 6, whatever. And I'm always, why don't you run something like Matt Finch's Spire of Iron and Crystal? Or that has a very old school feel to it. Why don't you run one of Greg Gillespie's super modules? Why don't you run I just think there's so much stuff out there now that it's great to talk about and think about the stuff we used to love, but I think there's a lot of newer stuff that's actually, it's a lot better written. I mean, we didn't really have game theory back then. If you look at a lot of the board games of the 70s and 80s, they suck. The board games now, we're the golden age of board games. I mean, they're just amazing. The board games now, they're actual fun to play. It's not like,
well, that was interesting.
Sorry, or the Game of Life, where you just roll the dice and you move around, and then everybody ends up having a fist fight at the end because it didn't work out for you. Monopoly fist fight or whatever. The games nowadays, I mean, cooperative games are great, and so I tell everybody, there's a place for nostalgia. Love your old stuff, but also look at some of the newer OSR style stuff. Find something that everybody's talking about, like something from Shadow Dark. Kelsey has a few really, really amazing publications. Jeff Jones has some great stuff. Greg Christopher has some great stuff. And try something new that has an old school feel. I know that wasn't really the question that we were asked, but I just always feel like I have to, instead of just coming back to the same half a dozen modules that we all know and love, show a little love for some of the newer stuff too, because there is a lot of really, really good modern stuff out there.
There's great stuff. You just have to be willing to look beyond some of the other stuff. And again, that's no poke at anybody or anything, but yes, we say the same things over and over because we do like those older ones, but
Tomb of Horrors is great. And look, if somebody wants to play Tomb of Horrors, I understand the appeal because everybody wants to go to Tomb of Horrors. But frankly, Tomb of Horrors bores me. It really, at this point, it bores me because it's the same story. Unless you have a group that's completely virgin, squeaky clean out of the womb, and they have no clue what they're in for. Now that would be awesome. That's going to be awesome because they're going to get their minds blown. But most people have a little idea what's going to happen. And I saw it run at a convention a few years ago, and I thought, oh, this is cool. This kid is running Tomb of Horrors. Well, kid, he was in his 20s. That's a kid to us. And so I said, I'm going to watch him run it. And it was as dull as dishwater because everybody there knew to do this here and go over here and do this and don't go in there because that's going to happen. I'm like, maybe we've run Tomb of Horrors too much at this point because these guys do everything about it.
I totally agree. I think that yes, we have run Tomb of Horrors too many times, and it's okay to say that. You should not be upset when you hear that. But the fact is that I always talk about Massive Nyarlathotep. I love Massive Nyarlathotep. I have passionately loved it since I got the box set. I think it's one of the greatest RPG adventures of all time. One of the things that we don't talk about is Wizards back in 2000 released 2 great box sets. They did Return of Tomb of Horrors and they did The Rod of 7 Parts, both of which are fabulous deals. If you go to Drive Through RPG or wherever and buy the print on demands, you're not going to be disappointed. because the same people who were behind the really great third edition of D&D were behind these adventures, and they were all in, and they made amazing stuff. I think to echo what Mike said, this is what I would throw out. We are at a time where you do not have to depend on what was played in the past or published in the past. You don't even have to depend on Wizards of the Coast and what they published with Dungeons and Dragons. Nobody here in this troika of brains is telling you that you have to buy Pathfinder, or you have to buy Troll Lord, or you have to buy Shadow Dark, or whatever. I think there is so much great content out there. Sailors in the Starless Sea by Goodman Games is an amazing.
Oh God,
yeah, it's a really good module.
That every year something comes out. The module that nobody talks about, that is the Gotterdammerung of Goodman Games, is Goodman Games DCC 100. The music of the spheres is chaos, and it's one of the best things that's been published by Goodman in the last 10 years.
Well, I have that. I've never read it, Jim.
And it's fabulous. But Shutter Mountain, Goodman's Purple Planet. We could go on and on and on. But there is no one publisher that has the lock on the market. There's no one publisher, big, medium, or small, that has the monopoly on great adventures. I think that I could turn around. I do this all the time. I could turn around and point to my bookcase, and I can pull some stuff off. One second. I'll grab two right off the bat that I'm thinking of that are relevant to this. One second.
I'm throwing some stuff up there that's come out in the last 20 years that I really like. I put up Fire of Iron and Crystal. And I think Rappanathic. So Rappanathic only came out 20 years ago, but Bill wrote this in the late 70s. So it's a classic mega dungeon. It's just you probably want the Swords and Wizardry version, which is out of print now. The 5e version is probably very easy to convert. But yeah, if you want something that your players probably haven't gone through, a mega dungeon that they'll play for the next 10 years, you can pull out Rappanathic, and you're going to have a great time with that.
If you want something that's Tomb of Horrors like, but believe it or not, it's from James Raggi and it's survivable, the Grinding Gear.
Grinding Gear. Very
my
good.
God. It is very much Tomb of Horrors, but smart players should get through it. And they'll feel like they achieve something if they do.
And he was not yet into his persona of I'm going to gross you out.
Yeah,
it was before his gross out period.
Yeah, it is exceptional.
It's a good dungeon. It's just a very good dungeon. It really is.
Yes,
but
I'm coming. All
right.
There's a lot of stuff that's come out in the last.
Okay. All right. I grabbed 3. 1 second. Turn my camera back on. All right. I grabbed 3 right off the top. I'm a huge fan of Anthony Hasso. I've talked about this before. Castle of the Silver Prince. Sorry, it's pretty terrible reflections. But this is a hardcover. He prints through Hulu, or not Hulu, but whatever. It's fabulous. Yeah. He publishes. Go to his website, thebluebard.com. Buy everything. The really great thing that he started off with was the interdimensional tavern, the Night Wolf Inn, that moves from reality to reality. It's fabulous. I don't ever hear enough people talking about Scott Taylor's work. His folio is an amazing series of books. Yeah. They're beautiful.
Everything he does is beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really beautiful stuff.
Like, you just can't go wrong with the folio. Scott's just a genius. And I don't think enough people talk about this. I really love it. It's the greatest hex crawl, the Dark of Hot Springs Island.
Oh, yeah.
This is the leather that's in.
Oh, it's really good. Yeah, it's very good.
And it's fabulous, but again, in Barrow Maze, there's 100 we could talk about for hours and hours, but there's just 3 off the shelf behind me, and And again, nobody on this show is telling you you have to go to this publisher or you have to use this game system or whatnot, because we are in the golden age of RPGs. We're absolutely in the golden age of RPGs, and we have so much clever stuff.
I know this guy will kill me for saying this, but I've actually used this example quite a bit with any number of modern game designers. But if Rob Conley was stuck in a tube and we shipped him back to 1980 and he produced the 2 or 3 items that he produced now, he would be considered one of the greatest game designers of all time, because that's his stuff is really good. But that's how not good most of the stuff was in 1980. There was a lot of crap back then. Like I said, there wasn't game theory back then. There wasn't the development that we had now. If Rob Conley went back there and put out Scourge the Demon Wolf, I'm absolutely 100% certain to be considered one of the 10 greatest modules of all time. And I mean, it's good, but it's just back then it would have been exceptional because there wasn't the same kind of just the same kind of care. And okay, let's put it this way: a lot of our favorite dungeons were what? They were tournaments. They were tournament. Ghost Tower of Inverness. I mean, these were Lost Caverns, Lost Temple. These were tournaments that were turned into dungeons. So nobody sat down there and said, "I'm going to make this great module that one day is going to be this incredible campaign starter." But no. They were writing a tournament for Gen Con or for whatever cons were going on back then. They were writing a tournament that was going to be it's going to have 3 distinct parts of it, and they shoved it all together. And they didn't think twice that someday this is going to be rewritten and republished, and it's going to become a classic of the genre. All they were thinking about is, I need 16 puzzle rooms for Gary by Sunday because we're going to run a tournament, and I need this. This needs to be out. So I think so much of the stuff now has so much more thought and care put into it. That doesn't make anything published back then terrible. I mean, by any means, any more than a book written in 1960. The book written in 1980 is so much better than stuff is a product of its time, and the product of its time back then was a lot of these adventures were not super well thought out. But you know what? We filled the spaces in with our imagination. We didn't have to be told everything. We could run. I remember, like I said, one of my favorite modules is Forgotten Temple of Thuristan, and I'd put that in my campaign world, and the valley it's in. I just moved that all over, and that was what was great about so many of the early TSR modules, is that you didn't need to run them in Greyhawk. You just ran them and you stuck them in your campaign world, and for a while, for 10 years, everything was Forgotten Realms. Every group I ran into wanted to play the Forgotten Realms. Every player wanted to do Forgotten, because that's what they knew. They were reading Forgotten Realms books. Dragonlance, they were reading Dragonlance books. Planescape, they're reading Planescape books. Now we have so much more of a choice in terms of you don't have. I used to have people harangue me that I would meet in meetup groups. I want to play Forgotten Realms. Well, we don't play Forgotten Realms. No, I want to play Forgotten Realms. I've read all the books, and I'm like, we don't play Forgotten Realms. We're playing, my own campaign world. I don't want to play in your own campaign world. I want to play Forgotten Realms. And it just got ridiculous after a while, because that's what they knew and that's what they wanted to do. And I think we're so much better now that we have an adventure and you don't get somebody screaming they want to play in Forgotten. I mean, do we have anything like that now that everybody screams they want to play in World X and they get mad when you don't play in World X?
I think they're still doing Forgotten Realms, but
they're still yelling for Forgotten. The same old guy sitting there 30 years later. I still want to play in Forgotten Realms.
The best Forgotten Realms was the gray box.
Absolutely.
That's where it was at its pinnacle. It was all. It was like taking the world of Greyhawk, detailing it a little bit more, but leaving so much room for your imagination.
Here's your Pantheon. Here's your different power groups. Here's a bunch of countries. We're all going to spend 2 or 3 paragraphs on them.
Yep.
And here's your Egyptian country. This country does. Here's water. Here's a little general of the politics going on here. Here's your bad guys. Book 2 has a whole bunch of adventure. Here's 3 adventures that you can run. Book 3 had here's a bunch of symbols that Harper's used. I mean, here's a bunch of organizations. It's perfect for setting up just that alone. If the world had ended, if the D&D had ended in 1992, we would have people still playing that. I guarantee you. They would be using the gray box and using the Waterdeep supplement and the Savage Frontier supplement, and they would be having a blast still. Because there was before we got to where we had to codify every single square inch of the Forgotten Realms. What about this country down here that nobody cares about? That that Ed threw the name in. We have to write a whole supplement based on that. No, you don't. Don't. You didn't have to do that. I mean, there's so much that was great. And the undeveloped, and that's why, by the way, a lot of us why we like Greyhawk. Greyhawk was not overly developed at all. You had the box set; it talked about it. A lot of people forget that the city of Greyhawk didn't even come out to 1989 after Gary had already left, and it was just created. So it wasn't even part of what we used to run when we were kids. I mean, there was no city of Greyhawk out, like I said, until 1989. But yeah, great. Everybody loved Greyhawk because Greyhawk was part of your imagination, and yes, everything kind of fit in there. But we just had the basic blueprints of what Greyhawk was. We didn't need We didn't need a supplement for every single nation in Greyhawk. Just like we didn't need one for every single nation in Forgotten Realms either. I'm firmly that they milked that cow so dry. It was just at a certain point,
Yeah. I'm passing the links. I'm passing the links, and Eric sharing them
They're in the chat. They're in the chat. You might have to scroll back because Dan Test just gifted 10 memberships. So thank you, Dan.
Holy crap.
Wow! And, thanks, Dan. That's awesome.
And Fox Marshall joined as a member right before that. So it's a huge night for us. Thank you. And
by the way, Alan Hammock's in the house, the great Alan Hammock. And I want to I know I'm going to embarrass him here, but I want to call out. I got to last year at EggCon for the first time ever in my life. I got to play in Ghost Tower. I had run it before as a DM. I'd never got to play in it. And I got to play in it when it was being run by Alan Hammock. I mean, I don't know. That's got to be a bullet point for something right there. It was awesome.
I'm guessing we didn't have.
We had a great time. The group had a great time. It was. Man.
Did he keep the module closed?
I didn't remember anything. I'll tell you. You know what I remember? The only thing I remember is the only thing I remembered about it because I hadn't run it in 40 years. The only thing I remembered was there was a Medusa in there somewhere. So I'm on the lookout for a Medusa at some point because I remembered there was a Medusa because when my group went through there, the Medusa cleaned their clock. It got like 2 or 3 of them, and they were screwed. And that's the only thing I remembered. There was so much about it I didn't remember. But it was we had an absolute blast. So yes, I'm not saying the older modules aren't great and you can play in them and you're still going to have a great time. You're going to have an absolute great time. I remember running, somebody had talked to me at a convention. They said, "Hey, you're an old guy," which I am. "Did you ever go through White Plume Mountain?" I said, "But I know White Plume Mountain. I've met Lawrence Schick this day." He goes, "What was the deal with that? It didn't make any sense." I said, "We have to understand. It was the first module. It was the first funhouse dungeon. There was the first example what we called a funhouse dungeon, where yes, it doesn't make any sense. It's just crazy." And this guy went on to just go on and on about how whoever wrote that had no clue what they were doing because it does this and it gives you these really powerful magic items and there's this one room where you're walking. I mean, it just makes no sense that there wouldn't be a dungeon like that. It makes no sense at all. Like. It's just a different time. It was a funhouse dungeon. It was a different time, a different way of doing things. The world is better off in a world we have funhouse dungeons. You don't have to go through funhouse dungeons. But at the time, we kind of loved funhouse dungeons. I remember, 1 or 2 times writing my own funhouse dungeon. I famously wrote a Museum of Magic Items dungeon when I was a kid that God, if I ever find that MS, I'm going to tear it up and throw it in the fireplace. It was so terrible. It was about this a museum with magic items, and the magic items were all cursed and did bad things to you. So of course, my group, after going through half it, said, "Why are we trying to do? We're leaving." No, don't leave. We're leaving. All we're doing is getting killed in here. Like it's supposed to be like a funny. We're all dying. So
It doesn't matter.
yes, the white.
Your lack of fun is not
that
my
kid,
problem.
That kid saying White Plume. That kid saying White Plume Mountain. What was that guy thinking about? Was just I just laughed. It was so funny. What was this guy thinking? I don't get it. Like
And you never will.
They're not supposed to make sense. Sometimes it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I reverse. Oh, nice, Alan. Nice.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, he did run that at North Texas. Yeah, I forgot. Oh, yeah. I wish, boy, too bad we can't get Lawrence at convention anymore. He doesn't leave Ireland anymore, sadly. He for those who don't know, Lawrence has worked on the Elder Scrolls games. He did some amazing work on Skyrim, and he also he is translating all of Alexandre Dumas's novels. And what's interesting is, I didn't know this, but the Three Musketeers has like 16 sequels. I mean, it goes on for freaking ever.
Yes.
And most of them have never been translated to English until Lawrence got to them and started translating them. I guess after I retire one day, because I really like the Three Musketeers, one day I'm going to go through there and pick a few of them and start reading through them, because I love that whole world. I love the Musketeers. I love that whole genre. So. But yeah, that's what he's up to now, unfortunately. He's not really in the gaming community anymore.
I thought you were going to say Mouseketeers. I got kind of nervous.
Do
we? By the way, somebody here mentioned WizardCon. Yeah, unfortunately, WizardCon, they had to cancel, or they pushed it back to October. So which sucks. I know for a lot of people, but that, once again, we were talking about smaller conventions, and sometimes smaller conventions have issues, and this happened. This is something that's going to happen, and it does happen. So,
but in any case, that was going to be my play test for my open table, but the open table signups will start beginning of next week. So if you are a minion, you're going to get first shot, and then subscribers.
This is going to be online. This is cool.
I'm not going to broadcast it. We're not broadcasting this.
Oh,
this is not broadcast. This is just hang out, have fun for 3 hours, but in an open table. So we rotate. I'm going to do it probably 3 out of 4 weeks every month, and
that sounds fun, man.
The day and time will change depending on my schedule and how I can work.
Will the people change too? Is it going to be the same people every week, or is it just going to be
open table? It's going to be an open table.
Oh, nice. Okay,
so it's going to be first come, first served. The 3 slots go to supporters of the channel. The next 2 slots go out to subscribers. You got to read the post, by the way, folks. If you don't read the post on YouTube, which I never did, but that's where all the stuff is coming up. That's where you got to find it. And then the last one is basically DM's choice. So if you were going to WizardCon, and you were one of the larger backers of WizardCon, let me know. I'll try to squeeze you into that last spot. My limit is 6, by the way, at the table.
Smart.
If you're running, I can do 10 to 12 at a con. But at a virtual table, to keep the game going, you got to limit it.
Yeah, don't overload.
Yeah, I've run with 8 online, and nothing. It goes nowhere. You can't. I can do it at a con, running BX or running Swords of Wizardry Light, not an issue.
It's easier when you can see the people. When you can't see them and you're just hearing voices, it's very hard. Even if you can see them online, it's just a different animal. It's a totally different animal running.
If you see me at a convention, I generally, when you take your breaks, when I say, all right, take a bio break, I'll use that to sit down. Otherwise, I generally stand, I walk around the table, I make eye contact. If I'm talking to you, I walk up to you, because conventions can be loud.
Yeah.
I can't do that with a virtual table. I mean, and virtual table has more distractions because everybody is doing this, right? Everybody is, multitasking because that's what we do on.
And they won't do it if they're playing with you at the table, because you're sitting there looking at them as they're trying to do this. But when you're online, they can have it off here and they're doing,
I mean, listen.
John Miller had a really good question here.
Are there any great? Okay. Are there any great answers for? Oh yes. Oh my god!
What I bet Jim and Eric have it. So RuneQuest has a great early. They have two great ones, and I know Eric loves one of these. Big
I love
Rubble
both.
is great.
And they're a set.
Big
We
Rubble
talked
is
in the
great,
set.
and Griffin
Pavis-
Mountain.
Well,
is-
I would
and
say
Pavis.
Pavis and Big Rubble. Get them as a set.
Pavis
Okay,
and Big
But
Rubble.
they
I-
work
yeah.
together. I did not know what a sandbox was until I got Pavis and Big Rubble and RuneQuest 2 at a con at the age of 19 at Columbia University. Yes, I was told never to come back for other reasons. But
Wow, this sounds like a story.
yeah, my 15th level druid destroyed an adventure because
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, I ran a sandbox without knowing what a sandbox was, and my group had a summer of huge fun. They tore through that, and it is great. Griffin Mountain is good. Don't get the Avalon Hill Griffin Island.
Griffin Island. Griffin Island's a different animal.
Oh, by the way,
Pavis and Big Rubble, the box
Yes.
sets are great. Yes.
Yes. And by the way, if you are doing RuneQuest 3, the Avalon Hill printing, if you get Monster Coliseum and it's still in shrink, it might be what I returned to my store, and they had to reshrink it because it's the only time I returned an RPG product. And I said to them, I spent a lot of money here,
Terrible.
and this is the first time I've actually bought clear shit. It was worthless. So that's the thing. If you see it, still see
It is terrible.
Oh my god! That's a rant.
If you can find anything by a company called The Companions that came out with about half a dozen items in the 80s, you can find them. They usually go for pretty high prices, but they wrote a really good series of modules based in the same area of whatever world they had. Gems for Death, Streets of Gems, Plague on Hereth. Just look for The Companions. Their stuff is really good. It's very very detailed for a third-party product at the time.
It's different in that as the person running the game, the bad guys have a timeline.
Yes.
Like if the players don't interfere with them by this point, this happens.
It's an amazing concept. It's really good.
Yeah,
it's
really
not used
smartly
enough.
laid out.
It's not used enough even in today's gaming. Now, I don't know enough about the other about Champions, Traveler. Is there any classic Traveler that everybody just has to? One of the little books that everybody just has to do. I'm not that up on Traveler, sadly. I couldn't tell you.
The
Champions also. I don't know much about Traveler. We've done shows about Call of Cthulhu.
Mike is
I was never a Traveler guy. I had the box set. I liked the box set. I thought it was interesting. I too had a character died during creation, like all of us. But the Traveler games that I always hear about are it's always the Ancients, something of the Ancients, and it's fine. I know that there's a part of Traveler space that's a gentle pastiche of H.B. Piper's Sword Worlds that Space Viking is set in, or that's where the Space Vikings come from. They come from all the Sword Worlds, but Traveler was really, really big, but really, really thin. The ideas behind Traveler were very large, and alien races and so on and so forth. Yeah. But the actual supplements gave you very, very little.
It should have hit. Yeah.
Yes.
If it's MERP stuff,
to this day, I always say if they had better art.
Oh yeah, there was no art. Well, but I shouldn't say there was no art, but there was no cover art. I mean, there was.
This is the free trader Beowulf.
Yes,
yeah.
It's a great line. Like it catches your interest, right? Mayday, Mayday. But you got to follow up on that.
Yeah,
I think art would have helped tons. Any art at all would have helped tons.
But when it comes to the MERP stuff, avoid the actual adventure modules. Get the setting stuff. The setting stuff is awesome.
Gorgeous.
But the adventure modules suck because they are totally non-Tolkien.
Yeah. The cartography is incredible on those things.
Yeah, but the setting stuff. Oh. The first one I got was Angmore. I still have it.
They're just beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful supplements because they just have some amazing cartography in there. You can flat pull out the castles and the dungeons or whatever, just rekey them. I used to do that all the time, and it's really, really good. The MERP stuff just looks beautiful. I don't know if it translates well to D&D because I've never tried to actually translate a MERP module to D&D, but I know the dungeons, the modules, or the adventures themselves look great, and you can pull the castle or the ruined castle or the Weathertop was a great one. I used Weathertop in my campaign. The Weathertop module has all of Weathertop and everything below and everything above, and that's a really amazing setting. So I've used
the setting
Weathertop
stuff
before.
started coming out before they actually were putting out the MERP RPG. It was being written for Rollmaster, and again, that was really well done. But once they put out the MERP, and I loved MERP, but the adventures for it were really, really bad. Sorry.
Adventure's not good, no.
Not so good.
They try to. It's very hard to make a Tolkien-ish adventure. They tried to make it. They tried to make Tolkien's world D&D.
I think they don't get enough credit for trying to be accurate to Tolkien's work, and they were gorgeous to look at.
Mm-hmm.
But they were thin on the inside, and I think that was always the problem. And Iron Crown was always money strapped. They were always cash strapped. And so, and I think that it would have been helpful to have more, if you had added more pages, if you had done more, but wishes were fishes, we'd all starve. So
indeed.
Also look for what was Raymond Feist's company called that he end up he based his novels on?
That's Techumel. Oh, sorry.
No, not Techumel.
That was a joke. It was
Feist.
The Rift War books.
I knew you knew
the Rift War books.
Yeah, but I mean, what was he had like five really, really beautiful the city of Kars. Where he just really detailed gorgeous stuff that came out in the 80s, and he ended up McKeemia Press. McKeemia Press. That stuff's really good. You can find that floating around. I think there was about 6 releases from them. Every one of them is just very good quality. They're really amazing. It's too bad that third-party stuff suffered from a lot in the 80s because there was really some good third-party stuff that came out in the 80s. But Midkemia Press, definitely. This is the campaign world that Feist and his friend ran, that he ended up basing all his novels based in this D&D, in this gaming RPG world. And so it's really, really good. And the city ones are great. He has a city of Kars. There's like 2 or 3 other cities, and they're very detailed. If you need a fantasy city, boom. Those are my go-tos. I pull those out.
I think the Thieves World box set is spectacular. It's
really good.
But again, as always with Thieves World, please let me say that you can get the first 4 paperbacks and throw everything else out after that. That's what you want.
Pretty much.
You're right on that too.
The Shadow Spawn novel wasn't bad, but that was still written in those first 4 books. Period.
If I had the power, I would kick you out of the chat right now.
Oh
God, they're terrible. Literally, Thieves World was an unexpected, out of nowhere home run.
Oh yeah,
Tales from the Vulgar Unicorn, another home run. Then he had enough stories to do he had so many stories for the 3rd book, he split it, and that became book 3 and 4. Mm-hmm. And then 5 is where it all went off the rails.
Oh God, yep. Because you were like, who the hell is this writer? What are they writing? What?
Who are these people? Why did they invade? But the Thieves World.
Remember what happened?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you remember what happened, right? Was that who got drunk on the power of their own success and started writing those?
Robert Aspen.
I don't remember the name, but somebody, instead of having this group of random writers, they started saying, no, we're really the only ones that can write in Thieves World.
Oh, and there was Andrew Offit and
and they kind of blew everybody else off, and then it just became Andrew Offit and the other lady, I can't remember her name. It became their own little private world. And at that point, they lost all the magic.
My God, I remember this shit. Holy crap!
Yeah, Lynn Abbey, she was an early DOS success. That was pretty good.
I just listed all the Mid-Kemia products. There's all that's all the Mid-Kemia products there was. Cities, City of Cars, Tool of the Isles, Thief World, John Roll, Gateway of the Sunken Lands, Towns of the Outlands, Black Tower, and Heart of the Sunken Lands. All great. They're all very good. Pick any of those up and you'll be like, wow, there was some really good stuff out in 1981 that I didn't know about.
Yep.
And it's really, really good stuff.
Very much so. I had a perfect Thieves World box set the movers destroyed when we moved back to the US.
And that box set was so hard to find in good condition too.
It was impossible.
Oh,
the shattered remains are behind me, and
I weep for you, Jim, because that's a terrible story.
But like Robert Asprin doesn't get enough credit for in creating the concept of a shared universe. He just doesn't get enough credit for that. And I realize, he was a crafty guy. He really was a crafty guy. He made the deal with the IRS that he was any monies received for writing books where he was the sole author, the IRS would garnish his money, which is why he never wrote another book by himself. And Jody Nye or whoever was always his co-author, so that none of that would be garnished. And she was so funny about that. She said Robert came to me with this idea, and when he published the first book with her, the IRS were like, "We're here for our share," and he was like, "Nope, the agreement said if I'm the sole author, not if it's shared." And the IRS guys were just like, and they never got a dime.
It's so hard to beat the IRS, but when it happens, it's delicious.
It's just delicious.
Can I tell a short IRS story that makes everybody happy?
Yeah,
please.
So I had a friend in high school that he's now a very successful person, but he went through a bad period, drank a lot. He eventually went to AA, and he's doing much better now 40 years later. But he lived with another friend, and he worked at a grocery store. And for years and years, he didn't file taxes because he was below the threshold. He was so lazy, even though he was going to get money back, he still wouldn't file taxes because he just didn't even want to do that. So for about 3 years, he doesn't file taxes, doesn't file taxes. 1 year, he gets a phone call from the IRS. So we have noticed you haven't filed taxes for years. We're going to send by 2 agents. We see where you live. Now, he was living with a friend. He was renting a room from him in this really beautiful, gorgeous, giant house. We see where you live. We would like to come there Wednesday and do an and if you have he goes, I've got all my receipts and stuff. Like we'd like to do an on-site audit. And he's like, yeah, whatever. You come on over. So, the day arrives. Ding dong, goes the door. There's this nice car out there. They're looking at the house and they're smiling. They're like, oh man, this guy hasn't paid taxes in 3 years. And he goes, come in, I'll show you the room I'm living in that I'm renting. And they go, renting? Like, yes, I don't own anything, including a car at this point. I own nothing. So they go in this room that's like your typical, college teenagers room. It's got stinky clothes everywhere, garbage, old fast food or whatever. He goes, oh, my receipts are in this. I put them under the bed. So he pulls out the bed. Under the bed, there's a shoebox, a dirty, stained shoebox, throws it up there. So these 2 impeccably just IRS agents are like, okay. They're already, their face is fallen because they're like, this isn't going to turn out like we thought it was. And they start adding up. And when it's all over, they go, we owe you $2,000 minus penalties, because they did have to penalize him because he didn't file on time. Minus penalties. He goes, oh, well, can I have that? And you go, we'll issue a check right now. And they issued a check, handed it to him, walked out, drove off. And I was like, that's the greatest story ever, because I can only imagine the rest of their day. They probably went straight to a bar from there. They went straight to a bar drinking and saying, when have we ever had to do that? That's never happened before.
I just found the greatest quote on Thieves World ever, and I've just shared it. CJ Sherry said, you write your first Thieves World story for pay. You write your second for revenge because of what other authors would do with your character.
Oh, God, yeah.
And holy shit, if that's not the guy, I put it in our chat.
I know,
it's just wonderful.
Yes, because you would take somebody else's character and screw it up, and they get pissed. Like, that's not what I wanted to do with that character. What the hell are you doing? and so they'd have to write another story retconning everything that you wrote in the second story. So that all didn't happen. That's hilarious. You're right.
Yeah, you
that
write
does make it. That is great. Yes,
that's just the greatest quote ever. You write your first
second
Thieves
is
World
fully
story for
advanced.
Bay. You write your
Who
second.
was the character everybody loved that somebody ended up killing off? And then the original author was
there was
pissed?
Shadow Spawn. There was
Shadow
Lithaid.
Spawn.
There was
Because Shadow Spawn was kind of everybody's favorite. And did somebody kill off Shadow Spawn?
I can't remember.
Did something?
But
anyway, they got pissed because Shadow Spawn was kind of their little their little cash cow, so to speak.
Yes, and it's interesting because then we got after the success of Thieves World, we got Wild Cards.
That's right.
CJ Sherry did the Merovingian Knights. There was 4 or 5 books of that. There were a bunch of those shared world anthologies, but Thieves World was still the best. And again, I beg of you, buy the first 4 and don't touch the rest.
There were like what, 7 or something like that in the end.
Oh,
there were 12 anthologies. There were 12 anthologies, a couple of standalone novels.
Yeah, Shadow Spawn was the only standalone I got. I must have stopped at 7.
Oh, there's more novels than that. I'm sorry. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There were 7 novels, and then there were a bunch of other collections of some of the short stories. There were some omnibuses in the 80s. There was a comic adaptation and so on and so forth. So even Mayfair Games did a Thieves World.
Also, there was a really good graphic novel, set of graphic novels.
Yes,
and, Tim Sale did the art, I believe.
Tim Kirk. I thought it was Tim Kirk. Tim Sale, Tim Kirk. Anyway,
Tim Sale. Yeah. But they're really good. Yeah, and then once again, just do the same thing Tim said. Right. Just read the first 4 or so. But they're really good. That they did a really good job with the graphic novels. That they're in big format. They're in like magazine format, so they look really, really nice. I don't remember who did the adaptations, but I swear I'll look it up. But I swear it was Tim Sale that did the artwork. I'll check real quick.
But they're so worth looking for. You know, they're really the first one. When you read the first one and you realize when it came out, right? It's all in that. We had that amazing period of time between 1979 and 1982 where not only was D&D hitting its stride, but you had such great twists in fantasy and science fiction, and Thieves World. Everybody who was playing D&D was reading Thieves World. It was so good. And the first one landed like lightning, and then the second one was great. The third one was good. The fourth one was good, and there are no other books after that.
I was right. It was Tim Sale did the art, adapted by Robert Aspirin and Lynn Abbey. So
yes,
they're really good. They do a very good job of adapting the actual stories without adding or taking away too much. And so
I actually have a Stephen Fabian original from Lynn Abbey's, I think, first or second published book.
Oh wow!
I have it somewhere over that way.
It was by Starblaze Graphics, which they didn't survive the 80s, if I remember correctly.
No, and that was Frank Kelly Frias's publishing.
Yeah.
You know, they Starblaze published graphic novels before Marvel did. They published paperbacks, and in fact, their first 4 paperbacks, there was Castaways in Time by Robert Adams. That was first published as
Castaways in Time, yeah.
And then the Adventures of Skeeve and Oz, the Myth Adventures books, they were Starblaze Dawning Forever, and then again, it's that great period of time in that late 70s, early 80s where, you know, ElfQuest, the really fancy versions of ElfQuest were published by Starblaze Dawning. You could get the autographed slipcase, you could get the trade paperbacks, et cetera, et cetera.
By the way, I put a link in our chat, guys. There, if you want to go to my comic shop, you can buy the graphic novels under $10. There's 6 of them in all, and I highly recommend them. They look really nice. It's early Tim. If you like Tim Sale's art, it's some of the early stuff he did, so it's not as good as the later stuff he did, but it's still really good. And like I said, they adapt the stories very well. That they don't change up a lot of the stories, so
I'd check those out if you're interested in Thieves World. They did a really good job with those.
Yeah, agreed. Totally. There was just so much great. There's so much great stuff that came out in that period of time, that late 70s, early 80s. And it was interesting and yeah, it just breaks my heart. It just breaks my heart so much that so much of this just.
Nostalgia is a hell of a drug, Jim. Like I said,
I know. My God, I
hate. Sometimes you like to drink it, but then sometimes you get sick because you're like,
and you wind up with
things
a
aren't
hell
as
of
good.
a hangover. Such a hangover.
Things aren't as good as they used to be. You're going, things aren't as good as they used to be, man. They used to have some great stuff. Never as good as it used to be. It never as good as it used to be.
Well, I think we're hitting that time, Mike. We're hitting.
Oh, well, I would like everybody to know that I gave this a listen tonight. Be Author on Broadway, and let me tell you.
My Lord.
Let me explain the format. Imagine your grandma is Maude from the TV show Maude, and she is on a stage and she's talking about her career in Hollywood and Broadway. And so she tells a little story, then she sings a little song in the voice of Maude, because that's what Be Author sounds like. Imagine that for a solid almost 2 hours. Then take the gun away from your head. You don't have to pull the trigger, because you'll wake up tomorrow and this won't be on the CD player. But I just like to say to my good friend who gave this to me that congratulations, you almost broke me, because I listened to quite a bit of it and it was something. It was an experience. It was an absolute experience. So, but my others are from the same one. Material Issue, Freak City soundtrack, great album. Low Anthem with the Crow Brings, great album. Damien Hirado, Gathered in Song, great album. I'll try to find something new next week, guys, and then Yola Tingle again. So I only the only thing I did different was spent 2 hours with Be Author on Broadway, which I'll never get back. And I'm an old person. I don't get back those years. It's kind of like a in a way. So, did you do better than me, Jim? Any movies?
I did. I think I've done better than you. So get ready. I'm gonna do two things. This is a spectacular week, and it's a spectacular week for one reason and one reason only. We are celebrating, yay, verily, the first official trailer for Coyote versus Acme came out. And I am the happiest I think I've been all
Finally!
Year.
It's going to come out, Jim.
Finally. So share that link in the chat.
Link to share.
If you don't know the story, Coyote versus Acme is based on an amazing short story about a trial lawyer who takes on Wile E. Coyote's case to sue Acme over their defective products. It got made into a movie with Will Forte. It's got John Cena. It's got a big cast. It was filmed. Everybody loved it. There's a much longer story than we have time here for.
It's a saga. Yes.
But it is a saga where, like the Batgirl movie, it was originally slated to just be written off as a tax write-off and never seen. And the outrage, my God, folks, at one point, there was a guy in a Wile E. Coyote suit with a sign walking back and forth on the sidewalk in front of the Warner Brothers studio that said release Coyote versus Acme. And it finally, against all the odds, it's gotten a distribution deal. We could spend an entire show on Coyote versus Acme and how it should never have been released, but it's coming out. I beg all of you, if you want to see more things that are good, you have to go see the things that are good. And at the end of August, every last one of you should be butt in seat for Acme versus Coyote. I did grab my Looney Tunes Platinum collection. I think this is volume 1. No, this is volume 3. I'm sorry. This is volume 3. I think any of you who've ever been around me at a convention will know that, in fact, my genetic offspring, my father might actually have been Foghorn Leghorn, because I said, you are not right. There's just something wrong about you. I grew up on all the Warner Brothers cartoons. I love them dearly. I was a huge fan of Wile E. Coyote. I used to do an embarrassingly accurate Roadrunner impression. All of this is wonderful. Watch the trailer. They have set Bugs Bunny up as the Watergate deep throat of the
Oh my God.
lawsuit.
God.
Wasn't that the whole setup of the movie? Is somebody asked somebody else at a why doesn't Wile E. Coyote sue Acme for all the things that happened? And who was involved? Who was the person involved in this, Jim, that started this? And they couldn't get that out of their brain. They said, "Yeah,
It's the short story. It's the story that got going first. The story is really where all the root of the great idea, but it's just I can't believe that we're finally going to get it. I will be butt in seat on the first night I have a chance to see it. I can't wait. Everybody needs to make this a hit. The animation studio said this is some of the best work we've ever done. They had a private showing for everybody that worked
wow.
on the movie, and people were crying because people were never going to see this.
Wow.
And Will Forte has said this is the most fun I've had doing a movie. And come on, Will Forte is not an A-list actor. He's a B-list actor, but he's a nice guy, and he's like, this was so much fun. And I would say there's a comment about more shorts in the style of the ones from the 30s and 40s. They've leaned into all the things you like, and they've stayed away from the stuff that, I don't ever talk about Tom and Jerry cartoons when they were friends. This is the abomination of animation that we don't speak of, right?
Thank you.
They should never be friends. And the Warner Brothers cartoons in the 70s were just awful as well. But this really leans into the stuff that we all love, the stuff that we find that's interesting. So again, please, 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 please go watch the trailer. The trailer looks great. If you want to follow the story, you'll go down a rabbit hole for a couple of hours, but it's all good. And finally, we're getting the movie we deserve.
I saw that and I thought of you immediately, Jim, when I saw that. And I said,
I am the living embodiment of Wile E. Coyote because nothing ever goes.
Super.
Yes. So.
Super genius.
Robert, thank you so much, by the way.
Our takeaways tonight are Thieves World. Go find the paperbacks. Don't buy anything after number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Wile E. Coyote, buy tickets as soon as they come available and take people, take kids. They need to see a funny Warner Brothers cartoon movie. What else? What other takeaways do we have? Go support publishers.
Yes.
We put links in the chat of some great publishers that are making great stuff. You should go buy it. I would say all the ones that I mentioned, the 3 I mentioned, are all people whose money you should give them money. They're great people. I don't know what else.
I mean, there's some great classic stuff, but there's some amazing currently or recent release stuff.
Yeah.
So support the creators that are creating now.
Come on. A lot of these people are just doing this as part-time at night after they get home, right? After the kids get settled and go to bed, they're up until 12, 1 o'clock in the morning creating stuff they just want to share with other people. And that's great. Yeah, my favorite Tom and Jerry short is the one where they're fighting in the basement and Jerry ends up making a plane and just killing poor Tom off. But it actually won an award. It won an Academy Award that year. I think it was 44, 45, somewhere in there. But it's just great. It's just wonderful.
My grandson actually was a huge Tom and Jerry fan. We had the complete Tom and Jerry on DVD, and Whoopi Goldberg is in the introduction for Volume 2 because there was some, how shall we say it, not quite racially sensitive stuff in there, and she says, "Look,
there's
it's
some
a product of
stuff
its
you
times." Yeah.
But
they
somebody's
did it
mentioned
the right
Gene
way.
Wolfe.
They did it the right way. They said they got
somebody
Whoopi on
mentioned
there.
Gene Wolfe's Earth of the New Sun books, the Severin the Torturer books, and we can come back to those for next week. They're really great. I love it when people are so excited they type so quickly they just misspell things. Like I'm now going to have to go look up Advent Nutchers. I think that's an interesting thing for White Box. And I now love that we have G.E. Nee Wolf. I think this is great as well. This fills my heart with joy because people type the way I type when I go.
Oh yeah. Oh God knows.
And we could spend an entire night on the Mac Bolan saga, right? Nobody ever talks about the Mac Bolan books from the 70s.
I only got like 3 books into that. That was too. That was.
I don't think I even got into that one.
Oh,
There was
come
like
on.
190 or 3,000 or
What
something.
was it? It wasn't the Punisher. He was not the Punisher, and the Punisher certainly wasn't Mac Bolan.
But they were
Executioner.
each other. But yes,
The Executioner
was,
series. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. I didn't
Yeah,
catch that one.
yeah. Gene Colan said that was not Gene Colan. Gary Conway said yes, definitely an inspiration for the Punisher, which
Yes, and the Mac Bolan books, the Executioner books, they just filled an entire shelf, like 5 feet of Executioner.
That was like the Big Mac of reading. You just grabbed one, you read it for 2 hours, and you felt full. And
I
then
thought
you
it
had
wasn't the Destroyer. I thought he was the Executioner. The Destroyer was the Remo Williams.
Remo Williams was the
Yes,
Destroyer. Yes.
yes.
Executioner was the Punisher knockoff guy. Yes.
Wow.
But now, have we seen the trailer for the new Punisher one shot that's coming from Marvel? Have you guys seen that?
They're doing the right thing. They got back to the basics, baby.
Did you hear how it came about though?
No.
So this is a great little, John Bernthal came to Disney with the idea and said, "You guys have, I don't like some of the places you're taking the Punisher. The Punisher needs to be this." And he came to them and they said, "Give us a treatment." And he said, "All right." And he wrote up like a 2-page thing, and they teamed him up with a screenwriter. And if you haven't seen that trailer yet, holy shit snacks, right? The only thing that punches harder than that trailer is the little short featuring the guy Thomas Jane, Dirty Laundry.
Dirty Laundry's great.
And if you haven't seen Dirty Laundry, go watch Dirty Laundry.
Punisher's never mentioned, but it's the Punisher.
It's the Punisher, yes. And it is the most visceral gut punch. And John Bernthal was like, "Hold my beer," because that new trailer looks spectacular.
I'm gonna have to look.
Well, they tried to wussify the Punisher for a few years. Marvel took away his skull and made him. He doesn't want to kill anybody anymore. He just wants to knock them out. They tried to make him for the modern audience, and nobody wanted that. And they finally they had an edict from above, and I've heard that the comic book has moved back to the traditional Punisher now.
Well, and the big thing about it's the Punisher one last kill. And the amazing thing about this is Bernthal doesn't pull any punches. And at one point he's in his empty apartment talking to ghosts. Here, I found the link to the trailer. Here you go. It's
pretty good. Perfect. It looks like it's going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, really and truly. I mean, and if you haven't seen Dirty Laundry, you got to watch Dirty Laundry. But then watch it.
The wife and I are watching the new Born Again Daredevil. It's pretty good so far. I think we're up to episode 5 or 6. Good stuff.
Yeah, I haven't been watching any of the series. I still got to watch the Game of Thrones.
Nah, I'm tired of dragons.
No, the one with the knight.
Yeah. But
the new one, the new ones are great. Yeah.
But I had a friend who was like, "Yeah, don't even bother watching the Dragon show because they all die and it has no effect on the show that you already."
They die horribly, and it happens 100 years before the book.
Don't worry about it.
They're all dead, and the night one was good as well. That's a beloved short story, but then it just makes me angry because now we're going to start talking about he'll never finish the last book. He doesn't have to.
Oh God!
He's just driving around in his motorized scooter, going, "I'm so rich, I burn money."
At this point, isn't it better that he just kind of passes away without writing it so we can get a finisher? Because he has famously said that he's not going to allow anybody to finish that bullshit. It will be finished. Somebody's going to own the rights, and somebody's going to look at that big pile of money to be made, and they're going to say, "Yeah, sorry, George. We tried."
Brandon Sanderson can't write all the things, so it's going to have to be somebody else.
It'll be somebody else.
Yeah,
but it'll happen.
Robert Jordan's work when he passed.
Well, yes, and Jordan needed an editor, but I'll tell you what, the best spoof of there's 2 great pokes at George R. Martin. There was a Saturday Night Live skit where George R. Martin was on set to make sure the requisite amount of nudity was in the show, and that was really good. But there's a show that was on MTV that's now on Netflix called Younger or Youngish or something like that, about a woman who goes back to the publishing industry but pretends to be a 20-something when she's a late 30-something because her daughter leaves for school. She's gone through a divorce and she's got to start over. But the publishing house that she works for, that she gets a job for, what has kept them afloat is that they have a very thinly disguised George R.R. Martin and Game of Thrones series.
Oh God.
And the reoccurring character of the author, he's skeevy, he's in a mobility scooter, his heroines are all scantily clad, like he's just perfect. And I would not recommend watching the entire show, but the episodes that center around the author are spectacularly funny because he's just like, oh, I don't know if your costume is small enough. And you're just like, oh, this guy, that guy, he's that guy.
I think I know who he is. Yes.
Hey,
Yeah,
can you get his sibling for you to act this out with?
Ew. Ew. Ew.
George, go suck it, George. We don't care anymore.
Folks,
That's right. You've exhausted us.
huge thank you to the community, the support, the gifts.
Oh my gosh, what a lively night!
You guys have been awesome, and gals. Live stream tomorrow night. Live stream Saturday night. Fridays are kaput for now, so don't look for me on Friday. Rach is very happy to have me free on Friday, so it may be a permanent thing.
Oh,
I know. She's like, you don't have a live stream? I'm like, she's like, what's Rob gonna do? So, folks, huge thank you to Mike and Jim, my co-hosts. It's always fun. And we'll be back next week. Mike might be on the road.
I may be on the road. We'll see how that works out next week.
So,
but I will be here whether I'm on the road or not. So.
And look out early in the week, the post section where I put up posts on YouTube. The open table signups are going to start, and we're going to get into that. All right, folks. Yeah, Dan, start a Friday night. Start a live stream, dude. I'll watch.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. All right,
live
folks.
stream.
Good night.
Start a live stream.
God bless. I'll catch you all later.